Mercedes is dominating Formula One, but the FIA just changed the rules to stop them. Right now, mid-season, after 3 races of total domination, 3 wins, over half a second per lap faster than everyone else. And here's the part that shocked the entire paddock. They weren't breaking the rules. They were using them better than anyone else. A hidden engine behavior? That looks perfectly legal in every test, but transforms under real race conditions. Turning 16:1 compression into 18, unlocking up to 40 extra horsepower when it matters most. And now, new evidence forced the FIA to act. A brand new rule. Engines will be tested at real temperature, exactly where Mercedes built their advantage. Which means, this trick is about to disappear. So what happens next? Does Mercedes lose their dominance overnight? Or have they been hiding something even bigger all along? Stay with me, because once you understand how this engine really works, you'll see why this rule change could either end their dominance, or prove it was never about the loophole at all. But to understand why the FIA made this decision, you have to understand how precise this loophole really is. Because this wasn't luck. It wasn't an accident. It was engineered, down to the smallest detail. Because inside the Mercedes engine, nothing changes randomly. Everything changes by design. The materials, the tolerances, the way each component expands under heat, all of it calculated, all of it controlled. Because when the FIA measures the engine, it's cold, around 20 degrees, stable, predictable, and in that condition, the engine is perfect. 16:1 compression, exactly on the limit, completely legal, no debate. But that's not how a Formula One engine actually lives. Because the moment the car hits the track, everything heats up. The combustion chamber reaches extreme temperatures, up to 1000 degrees internally. The structure itself rises to around 130, and that's where Mercedes built the real advantage. Because as those temperatures increase, the materials expand. But not all in the same way. Some expand more, some expand less. And that difference changes the geometry inside the engine, shrinking the combustion chamber just enough to increase compression, from 16 to 18. And that jump is massive, because in Formula One, 2 points of compression can mean between 30 and 40 extra horsepower, without adding fuel, without changing the rules, just using physics, better than anyone else. And that's what makes this so difficult to regulate. Because Mercedes didn't hide a part, they didn't add something illegal, they optimized something invisible. Behavior. How the engine evolves when it's actually doing its job. And that's why the FIA had a problem. Because their tests were never designed to catch this. They measured the engine in one state, but the performance existed in another. And once that gap was exposed, everything had to change. Because if they didn't act, every team would be forced to copy it. Every engine would be redesigned. And the regulation itself would lose meaning. So the FIA did the only thing they could. They changed the conditions, not the limit, the measurement. Because now, it's not enough to be legal when cold. You have to be legal when it matters. At full temperature, under real load, during real performance. And that single change destroys the foundation of this trick. Because the moment you force the engine to stay at 16:1, even when it's hot, you remove the hidden gain. You remove the transformation. You remove the advantage. But here's where it gets interesting. Because removing the advantage is not the same as removing the dominance. And that's the question nobody can answer yet. And this is where everything becomes uncertain. Because removing the loophole doesn't automatically remove the advantage. It only removes one layer of it. And that's exactly what's making the rest of the grid nervous. Because when engineers analyzed the data from the first 3 races, they realized something uncomfortable. The compression trick explains part of the gap, but not all of it. Not even close. Because even if you take away those 30 to 40 horsepower, Mercedes is still ahead, still more efficient, still more consistent over a full race distance. And that leads to a much deeper question. What else is inside that engine? Because the numbers don't lie. The Mercedes car is harvesting more energy per lap than anyone else. Over 7 megajoules. Ferrari is lower. Red Bull even further behind. And that difference changes everything. Because more energy means more deployment. More deployment means stronger acceleration. And stronger acceleration means control. Control of overtakes. Control of defense. Control of the race itself. But here's the key. That advantage is not affected by the new rule. The FIA changed how compression is measured. Not how energy is harvested. Not how it's deployed. So even after the rule change, part of Mercedes' system remains untouched. And that's where the tension inside the paddock grows even more. Because now rival teams are facing a different reality. Even when the loophole disappears, Mercedes might still be ahead. And that's a much harder problem to solve. Because you can target a loophole. You can close a gap in the rules. But you can't easily copy a complete system. Not quickly. Not mid-season. And that's why this moment is so important. Because for the first time, we're about to separate two things that have been hidden together. The trick and the team. Because until now, they've been one. Performance boosted by a loophole. But after the rule change, they split. And what remains? That's the real Mercedes. But here's where the pressure shifts inside the team itself. Because now, they don't just have to win. They have to prove something. That they were always this good. That the dominance wasn't dependent on one clever idea. That even without it, they're still the benchmark. And that kind of pressure is very different. Because winning with an advantage is expected. Winning without it is proof. And everyone is waiting for that moment. The first race after the rule change. The first lap where the engine can't transform. The first time Mercedes runs under the same conditions as everyone else. Because that's when the illusion disappears. And the truth finally shows. Not in theory. Not in analysis. On track. And that's when we get the answer to the question that has been building since the beginning. Was this dominance engineered through a loophole? Or is it something much more dangerous? Something that remains, even after the loophole is gone. And now, everything comes down to one moment. Not the investigation. Not the accusations. The race after the rule change. Because that's where the illusion ends. No more hidden transformation. No more advantage triggered by temperature. No more gap between what the FIA measures and what the engine actually does. For the first time this season, Mercedes will run exactly as they are. Nothing extra. Nothing hidden. And that's where the real tension begins. Because inside Mercedes, they already know what they're about to lose. Not everything, but enough. Enough to change how the car behaves. Enough to affect straight-line speed. Enough to reduce that invisible edge they've been carrying since the first race. And when you remove something that fundamental, you don't just lose performance. You lose certainty. Because until now, they knew they had an advantage. They could rely on it. Build strategy around it. Control races with it. But after the rule change, that certainty disappears. And in Formula One, uncertainty is where mistakes begin. But here's where it gets even more critical. Because this isn't just about Mercedes slowing down. It's about everyone else getting closer. Ferrari, waiting, calculating, ready to attack the moment the gap shrinks. Honda, pushing harder than ever, looking for any weakness. And even Red Bull, despite their own struggles, watching this moment as an opportunity. Because if Mercedes drops even a fraction, the entire grid compresses. And when that happens, everything changes. Strategy becomes unpredictable. Qualifying becomes tighter. Races become fights again. And suddenly, Mercedes is no longer controlling the championship. They're defending it. But here's the final layer. The one everything has been building toward. Because this moment is not just a test of performance. It's a test of truth. Because for months, there's been one narrative. That Mercedes found a loophole. That their dominance came from something hidden. Something others couldn't replicate. But now, that explanation is about to disappear. And what remains will define everything. Because if Mercedes still wins, if they remain ahead, if they control the race even without that extra compression, then the story changes completely. Then this was never about a trick. It was about superiority. But if they fall back, if the gap closes instantly, if the field suddenly catches them, then the truth becomes unavoidable. This dominance was built on a window, a perfectly exploited moment in the rules, that existed just long enough to give them control. And now that window is closing. So when the lights go out after the rule change, you're not just watching a race. You're watching the answer. The answer to everything that's happened this season. Because in that moment, there is nowhere left to hide. No more variables. No more questions. Just performance. Real performance. And finally, we will see what Mercedes really is, when the advantage that changed everything is gone. And this is where the story truly ends, or begins again. Because once that first race without the loophole happens, once the data comes in, once the lap times settle, there's no more debate, no more speculation, no more theories, only reality. And that reality won't just define Mercedes, it will define the entire season. Because if the gap disappears, everything we've seen so far gets rewritten. Those early victories, that dominance, that half-second advantage. It all becomes something else. Not pure performance, but timing. Perfect timing. A team that understood the rules better than anyone, and used that understanding at the exact right moment. But if the gap doesn't disappear, if Mercedes still leads, still controls races, still manages tires, energy, and pace better than anyone else, then the narrative flips completely. Because then, the loophole was never the reason. It was just a bonus. And that possibility? That's what makes this moment so powerful. Because it forces everyone to confront something uncomfortable. Maybe Mercedes didn't just outsmart the rules. Maybe they outbuilt everyone. And if that's true, then even after the FIA closes every gap, even after every trick is removed, they're still ahead. And that's a much bigger problem for the rest of the grid. Because you can close a loophole, you can change a rule, but you can't instantly match a team that understands the entire system better than you do. And that's the fear right now. Not the loss of one advantage, but the realization that it might not matter. But here's the final truth. The one everything has been leading to. Because Formula One has always been about one thing. Finding the limit. Not breaking the rules. Finding where they stop being precise. And operating exactly there. And that's what Mercedes did. Perfectly. They didn't cross the line. They lived on it. And for a moment, that was enough to dominate the sport. But Formula One always evolves. The rules change. The gaps close. The sport adapts. And the teams that survive are the ones that adapt with it. So now, the advantage is gone. The spotlight is on. And the only question left is the one that will define everything that comes next. When the rules finally catch up, will Mercedes still be ahead? Or was this dominance built on a moment that will never exist again?